we already had roughly the right amount of members, so we went down the reform pathway. There was some discussions in the industry that possibly that could mean that they would all go, but we did receive a letter from the minister that it was gazetted that these would be our vacancies and that's how the election would run. So it's confusing to see that kind of correspondence.
Yeah, I do have a copy of the final set of orders here, and it states terms for officers expiring in 2023, the mayor plus at that time 4 councillors prior to the extraordinary one being added, and then terms for officers expiring in 2025, 4 councillors. So it does set out that there's two. That there are 2 sets of terms.
In 25, that would be correct because the election is October 23. 2 years' time is another election. That's normal.
That's for the people that have terms that expire at 2025.
Yes,
We'll
but from
seek some
23 to
clarity.
25 is 2 years, and every 2 years there's an election.
We'll take that on notice and try to obtain some more information and get back to you. It's interesting that you've received that communication from the Minister's office. And
Because I asked the questions.
yeah, and the Gazettal doesn't seem to clarify that, so maybe.
Mr Sims, if it's okay, if we could maybe have a look at whether, to make sure that we're on the same page here, but yeah, wouldn't mind having a look at that letter if that was okay.
Yeah, I'll give you a copy of it.
That'd be great. But definitely for the upcoming election, there will be, as the Mayor's mentioned, the 4 original positions, the extra one that comes from the Mayor's resignation plus the mayoral election.
Yeah.
And that is, getting back to your original question around the costs, we certainly also asked the question. We thought it was quite a large increase. But the extra election, preferential voting, as well as increased costs of wages and overheads, et cetera, that's what's contributed to the cost. Yeah.
That's very similar to other local governments that we've checked with, similar increases.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. I think the postal vote is the best way to do it, so commend you for that. I'm not commenting about the actual amount of money that they wish to charge you, just that based on the information from them, it should increase.
We'll follow up on that information. It's interesting that you've received that response.
Can I just make a comment, if I may?
Councillor Wright?
As I had time today to check the internet, if you type in reform pathway into that site that the CEO sent out, it does say that all positions will be declared vacant. But when you click on the link, it doesn't take you anywhere. And it does say that positions may become vacant. So it's as clear as mud. And I think it's important that we get it sorted out pretty quickly. But obviously it's because we took that reform pathway is why it's unclear.
Yeah, we'll certainly seek some clarification, and thank you for raising.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I'll just read half a sentence because it says the city opted for the reform election pathway, the consequence of which is that all council member offices for the city will be vacated.
Does it say at this next election?
Yes, for 23.
Yeah. I don't think that's correct, Mr Sims, but I'd love to have a look. I have heard of instances of some councils getting the wrong letter as a result of this process too, so they've had to have it rewritten. So I'm hoping this is not a similar sort of situation, but yeah, worth having a look at.
We'll certainly follow up on
Yeah.
We'll just give you a copy of that.
Thanks, Mr Sims.
It wasn't meant to be a trick question.
No, that's pretty important. I find it interesting with what's gazetted and, yeah.
As I said, I don't only ask questions of council, I ask them of the government. So.
Did you have another question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. When work stopped on the Saltwater Convention Centre, I asked if Broad had asked for extra money above the 38 million fixed price contract. later work did restart, which was a good thing. At last month's council meeting, we were made to leave the chamber due to item 20.1 being confidential. The 21st of June minutes for that meeting state, quote, item 20.1 confidential as it contains information relating to a contract entered into. My question is, did this contract, subject of 20.1, relate to the BPAC, or saltwater, I should say?
At the June meeting?
Last meeting.
I think that was in reference to the contract, the initial contract with Broad, not necessarily another contract.
Councillor Cutter?
Yeah.
I'll ask the CEO to respond. Thank you.
So there's nothing in those minutes in that item for me to read, or anyone to read, and I understand that. But it says that it was to do with a contract related, sorry, I'm not going to find it again. As it contains information relating to a contract entered into.
20.1. June meeting?
From my sorry, confidential, it was urgent business item.
So it was in relation to
No.
a legal matter in relation to the contract is probably about, a legal matter according to a contract. Yeah.
To a contract.
Yeah.
So we're not saying whether it was saltwater or contract relating to
I
saltwater.
couldn't disclose the nature of it at this point in time, sorry, Mr Sims.
So then the next part, you obviously say the same thing because it was, does this relate to an increase of over the $38 million fixed price? So,
Yeah, if it's about that particular item and the details of that, I couldn't say. I'm sorry, Mr Sims, yep.
so this is a little bit general to do with this, and it could cover any other contract, but specifically for this one. If the city decides to pay an increase in funds to Broad for the saltwater, would the total figure be transparently noted in the city financial statements? The reason I ask that is because it's easy to hide things without using, I can't think of another word.
No, I think I get what you mean, Mr Sims. So certainly any expenditure that the city spends on that particular contract will be recorded in the city's financial statements on a month-by-month basis, and also at the end of the year as well when we do our annual financial statements, which are audited by the Office of the Auditor General. So those, if it's contractually required to be paid, that will be showed up in those.
That'll show up
Yep.
clearly as the Broad and saltwater.
In accordance with our financial statements, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
We can only pay money that's in the budget, otherwise there would have to be a budget amendment.
Yep.
Yeah, I understand that. It was more that it would be transparent if it did happen, that anyone who reads any of the financials would see it without trying to find it in there.
Yeah, I think when you have a look through one of the things you can look at is the financial activity statements each month and there'll be comments on where things are at. But as the Mayor has said, if there's anything that's over and above what's budgeted or what's been set by Council for budget, that would need to be brought back to Council for consideration. We couldn't expend further past that. If we're contractually obliged to pay, which we generally are, there's usually monthly invoices that come in from Broad and other suppliers on the project as well. They're catered for within the financial statements.
Yeah, I understand, but my comment is about if we have to pay more than the 38 million, will that be transparent in the
Yeah,
and all the
absolutely.
financial,
Yeah.
that's
Yep.
fine.
But if it's over budget, obviously we'll be bringing it back to council anyway. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, now move on to item 6.1, with an officer recommendation to receive a petition pertaining to Hannay Lane and request the CEO prepare a report. Is there a move for that recommendation? Move Councillor Cronin, seconded Councillor Carter. Is there any opposition? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Is carried 7-0. Item 8.1 is to confirm as a true and correct record the minutes of the council meeting held on the 21st of June. Is there a mover? Move Councillor Richards, seconded Councillor Cox. Is there any opposition? Not. I put the motion. Those in favour? Is carried 7-0. The adoption by exception resolution contains the committee recommendations for items 10.1, 10.2, 10.3 and 10.4. The officer recommendation for items 11.1, 12.1, 14.1 and 15.1. So mover for the adoption by exception resolution. Move Councillor Carter, seconded Councillor Cronin. Is there any opposition? Not. I put the motion. Those in favour? Is carried 7-0. Item 13.1 is to adopt the office recommendation or committee recommendation in this case.